Hello, YouTube. Today I'm going to do my third installment in my tier list series, and we're going to be doing all the spellcasters. These are hit-based spellcasters, not dot pulls. Dot pulls will be a different video. Um, but with that being said, spellcasters are definitely my favorite, or like not my favorite, but definitely my niche in this game. It's the builds I know the most about. And yeah, I'm quite excited to go through this. I do want to mention quickly, or just note some changes, some stuff that I messed up in the first two tier lists. I forgot to add Thea 2 to the first melee tier list. I would have just put her into like the underplayed tier, or like the bad tier. And I forgot to add. I've not forgot, but what I didn't notice is Carino 3 did actually receive nerfs in the updated patch notes, which literally like came out like which I only found out about like literally right after I finished recording, and I didn't want to retake the video. I'm sorry. So, with that being said, we're gonna start off with Selena 1. Now, Selena 1 actually has two like main setups that you can go for her. You can do a hit-based variant, and I think traditionally like that was the idea behind the character. That is what they wanted, like that's what they were imagining when they made Selena 1, was for it to be like this hit-based character. But there's also an element setup. She's going to be one of the few characters that I will be putting in multiple tier lists and not just like have honorable mentions for, just because both setups are actually played quite frequently, and they're both pretty interchangeable to each other. Though, with that being said, they're not quite equal in power. So going to this, so let's quickly talk about what Selena 1 does. Selena 1's whole trait and her concept, to break it down very simply, is just you're able to move while channeling. There's more to her trait. She has two forms, but the whole two forms mechanic is just completely irrelevant to the character, because you always are just in the same form, and it's the form that allows you to move while channeling, so it's kind of strange. With that being said, though, yeah, she's basically the go-to channeling character. If there's any channeling skill in this game that's ever good, you know, Selena 1 is gonna be seeing a lot of play, or like it's gonna be seeing play with that setup, simply because no other character in this game can move while channeling, and that's a absolutely massive boon. Now we are here looking at Smith, which is a person from the TLI Discord. I actually did ask him some questions about Selena going into this new season to get his thoughts about the res builds and whatnot. Because a big worry that I have for Selena and for a lot of the dot builds in the next season is max channel stacks did receive some hefty nerfs. A lot of sources for max channel stacks got removed, and if you looked at some of these old setups, you would literally see them doing slate setups that just have 10 plus max channel stacks just in the slates alone. But after talking to Smith about it, the hit-based variant of Selena 1, he does put like he said in the A tier for spellcasters. So I think going into the season, it's going to be pretty okay. But I think the majority of Selena 1s you're going to be seeing are going to be actually doing dot builds, because the dot variation of Selena 1 is just significantly stronger than her hit-based variant. Which does make sense, considering that dot builds just are better than spell builds. They just do more damage. They have higher damage caps. But specifically, like, Scorching Beam looks really good next season. Even with all the element nerfs, and even with all the max challenge stacks nerfs, it seems like Selena 1 is still going to be completely fine next season, and people are still going to be playing her. So that's pretty good for the fish enjoyers out there. Again, this is a character that I personally don't know too much about it, because I've never really played any channeling skills, so I'm mostly just basing my opinion off what I would consider experts have to say about it. Because in the case of Smith, I think he's like the second highest like person on Dragon on EU, like the highest Selena 1 by like a fucking large margin. But if you go across like all the characters, ignoring Rosa 2, because she doesn't really count, I think she was like the second highest character at one point, or something like that. But yeah, in the background you can see the build that he did SS21 with. As far as I'm aware, this is the hit-based build. I don't actually have a video for the dot build, but we'll get to that once we get to that. But as you can see, he does swap from Howling Gale later on to doing Scorching Beam for like cage farming and just all that really hard endgame content. Next up, we are going to be doing Yuga 1. So, oopsie. So Yuga 1's an interesting one. I think Yuga 1's looking really good next year. He received a lot of hidden buffs in the patch notes. So, generally speaking, I've always been like a Yuga 1 hater. I've always thought like he's not that good of a character, and let's be real, I've kind of been accurate in my assessment. He's definitely had like left a lot to be wanted. But going into the new tier, I think this might actually turn a new leaf for Yuga. So, generally the way that people play Yuga is early on they're just playing Icelands for progression, and then later into the game, they'll spec into just a bunch of spellburst stuff, like additional dimensional spellburst, additional spellburst stacks, and whatnot. Almost like a Bing 2 Salt River type style, but without going Salt River. At least I think without going Salt River. We'll see in a bit in this video. But yeah, they just like get a bunch of max spellbursts. In this endgame setup, I think I counted 4 max spellbursts. And the reason why I'm saying is like turning a new leaf for you guys, going to the new tier, not only did Icelands receive pretty major buffs, which is a very viable option for what you can play on Yuga. Instead of playing Chain Lightning, like you can just stick to Icelands, and with the big buffs to Icelands, it's probably going to be very, very strong in the late game. On top of that, they actually changed Squirtle. They reduced the maximum number of spellbursts you need to activate Squirtle from 6 down to 4. Oh, this Yuga has 6 spellbursts, which is going to make it a lot easier to fit in 4 spellburst Squirtle inside of like these Yuga builds. Which is actually just a very big buff to Yuga. Just being able to get Squirtle for less investment and just much easier. And on top of that, also, like, you always want to play cold damage when you play Yuga. And cold damage getting buffed, all these, like, cold damage getting buffed so much in the rework from a few seasons ago. All of these are just compounded into making Yuga actually a pretty solid option, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if I would consider him to be, like, the top dog of spellcasters. Maybe I wouldn't go that far. I think he's still quite a bit lacking. I think all spellcasters are quite a bit lacking, but I especially think that Yuga's a bit lacking. I think I would have put him like a tier below Selena usually, but considering all the buffs going into the new patch, considering how strong he's looking, I'm probably going to put him on the same tier as Selena. And I expect it to be quite a few people playing him and like, you know, having some pretty decent progression of him. But I don't think he's going to be like the absolute bee's knees or the best in any way, shape or form. Yeah, we're just going to be waiting for this. Oh, I guess, actually, sorry, I completely forgot to talk over his trait and what he does. So the way Yuga's trait works is he spawns 2 clones of himself, and those 2 clones are like a built-in automation. They just follow you around and just cast your core skill. And, like, buffs you have apply to your clones. If you're spellburst, your clone spellburst. Or, like, your clones are able to spellburst, and they have their own spellburst board that's separate from yours. It's actually a pretty cool hero. It's like the Rayan 2 of spellcasters in the sense of, you know, it just has this, like, your trait that's built-in automation, which I think is a very cool niche. But yeah, with all of that being said, I think Yuga 1 is looking pretty strong going to the new tier. Next up, we have Thea 1 Ice Lancers. Now, Tier 1 going to this tier was a very, very popular character. She's probably the reason why, you know, it's kind of hard to place Yuga 1 higher up, because when you're doing this, like, relative comparison, you know, you are comparing against the best of the best, and the best of the best in the spellcaster field are quite heavily stacked. And Tier 1 received a rework last patch, which just made her an extremely, extremely strong option, one of the best spellcasters in the game. And why play like a cold convert build on Yuga 1 when you can just play it on Thea 1? I guess is a question a lot of people asked, and most people could not find an answer to that question, so they ended up just going Thea 1. Going to the new patch, as far as I remember, there was no nerfs to Thea 1 in the patch notes, and if anything, she did receive a buff, because Icelands, again, received really major buffs. Just really, really massive major buffs for some reason. Which is just overall going to be, like, pretty nice for playing Thea 1. I don't know what the fuck to do. All 4 of my planned builds got nerfed. Emulating world removal is the tier 1 nerf. It doesn't matter. People were playing SS21 before they got emulating world. It is a shame that you lost emulating world, because I thought emulating world was very cool, but it makes sense that it got removed. Now, I'm not actually like an expert on tier 1. I know that she was played by quite a lot of people the last season, so I imagine she is quite good. But all three of the Thea's whole like concept, or like their Euro trait and what their Euro trait does, is around focus besting stacking. And they all gain like something from focus besting stacking. And obviously Thea 1 is no difference. She has built-in blessing generation within her trait. And then she wants to stack max blessings to... Let's see. She wants to stack max blessings to max out her pure trait. And obviously get as much damage as possible. If I'm not mistaken, the way that you generally do player is you go full on focus besting stacking. So you don't really bother with agility and tenacity. I do think they're all builds where you can go agility and tenacity, but pretty much everyone who does player just go all in on focus besting stackings, because you have to kind of choose between either like the focus besting build or the agility plus tenacity besting build. And the focus besting build, as far as I'm aware, is just better. So people just go for as many focus besting as possible, which in a way that is slightly nerfed going to next season, because you're not really going to have access to like dream focus bestings anymore. You're not going to have access to like inverted dream focus bestings anymore. But that's not really that big of a deal. Like, it's going to be fine. You know, I don't think you need to get that many focus bestings to cap out your hero trait. You're not going to like... It's not going to be the end of the world to lose a few focus bestings over the cap that you need for your hero trait. With all of that yapping out of the way, I do think she's one of the best in the archetype. And she's a very good generic spellcaster. I think you can play a lot of bolts on her. And I think I could see... So it was quite difficult finding people that like were playing bolts on her this season, because pretty much everyone playing Gemma Thea 1 was playing Chromatic Shot. I do think going to the next season, Chromatic Shot Gemma 1 is gonna... Thea 1 is gonna be very strong. Okay, next up is gonna be G2. So Gemma 2 is the Frost counterpart of Gemma 1. Her whole trait is just focused on frost damage, increasing the effectiveness of Frostbite, and just scaling, you know, pure frost damage. She is the pure ice character in this game, but due to the way that the game works, she kind of is best only at, like, spells. Because attack characters, like, you know, they have such insane attack scaling that, like, why would you play a attack frost skill on her when you can just play an attack frost skill on an attack character? With all that being said, though, Gemma 2 looks absolutely insane in the new tier. In the next season. Holy shit! Sorry, I'm sorry about struggling with my words there. So, looking at the stats from this season, Tier 1 was very, very played. Like, a lot of people were playing her. She was one of the most played characters of the season. And Gemma 2 had a decent play rate, but she had a massive, like, fall-off in play rate compared to her from her previous seasons. You know, like, last season when the Tango rework happened, Gemma 2 was significantly more played. And I think there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is just Chromatic Shot existing. If you're playing a hero that only wants to do cold damage, you can't really utilize Chromatic Shot very well on her. And any hero that could utilize Chromatic Shot, like, well, just automatically got used, because pretty much people were playing Chromatic Shot pretty much on every single hero in the game. And she just wasn't the best Chromatic Shot user, unfortunately for her. That was one thing that was kind of holding her back. And going to the new season, the Tangle nerfs do hurt her a tiny bit, but the Tangle nerfs hurt every single spellcaster. Like, the only spellcaster who's not really going to feel the Tangle nerfs is going to be, like, Yuga 1, for example, who doesn't play Tangles. Oh, also, sorry. Don't do what this person did. Just take the projectile speed. This was, like... I got so tilted looking at this person's build. when trying to find builds for Gemma 2, pretty much every single build I found was, oh yeah, and also don't prism over your frostbite effect. Like, this is stupid. Don't do this. Why are you prisming over your frostbite effect? You're so stupid. It's just, it's so utterly idiotic, it hurts me. You could literally just put this over there and it would automatically be better. You would literally just gain damage for free. You know, just there to there, and you gain damage for free. Or even better, just don't put this over your frostbite effect full stop. It's like so idiotic, just put it here. But anyway. When I was looking at builds, pretty much every single Gemma 2 that I happened to find who played this season was actually playing Frost-Terra. Frost-Terra was like a very, very common build for China, which obviously Frost-Terra is looking pretty good going into next season with the char changes. I wanted to show this one off specifically though, because I think going to the next season, one of the strongest builds is probably going to be Iceland's Frost-Terra Gemma 2. I saw traders like cooking up a build with it, and it just looks really good. Where you play a build where you have an automation on your Frost-Terra, which causes it to like spawn on the enemies, and then you use Icelands with like the Frost-Terra support, and you 6-link your Icelands and your Frost-Terra, and you scale both. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to like properly scale both. I think trying to scale so many like two different abilities at once is kind of cooked. But even if that doesn't end up working out, just like doing like a generic like Frost-Terra setup on her is going to be very strong. Just doing a generic Iceland setup on her is going to be very strong. I think she's looking pretty good and pretty strong going into next season. It's very confusing, all of the like Frost buffs we received this season, but you know, for the Frost enjoyers out there and the Gemma 2 enjoyers out there, it's looking pretty decent. Especially now that not everyone's forced into going chromatic shot. Okay. And then next up, we have Bing 2. Now, Bing 2 is a toughie. I've always felt that Bing 2 was a rather weak hero early game, but like it wasn't the end of the world. And this season especially, the revival hero, the memory revival they gave for Bing 2 was actually absurdly powerful. That he was one of the faster spellcasters to clear SS20. Obviously, you couldn't compete with someone like with Sage. But a lot of people who were playing Bing 2 didn't have that much competition on their gear, despite being a spellcaster. I mean, they still had competition, but like, it wasn't like that expensive or that bad for them. And they actually got quite a lot of damage for their budget. And a lot of it was in thanks to the new hero memory for Bing 2 just being absurdly powerful. Where he kind of flew a bit under my radar. He was a bit stronger than I was expecting him to be. Going into the next season, it seems really cooked for Bing 2. I'm not gonna lie, it just seems really cooked for him. The changes to Spellburst are like absolutely awful for him. Yes, once you get to Priceless Rings, you can get like really strong Spellburst mods on your rings, that's true. But you just lost like a bunch of max Spellbursts that you'll never be able to get back. They're just gone forever. On a year that wants to get as many Spellbursts as possible. And not only that, the buffs he gave to his hero trait to like compensate for these nerfs were just not really enough. I'm very worried about Bing 2. I feel like he's been like on the weaker side the past few seasons. He struggles with the same issues that E2 struggles with, which like other spellcasters, they have weak early games. That's just the thing about spellcasters. If you compare them to like melee attackers, even range attackers, but especially the melee variants, their early games are just completely garbage. They're like really bad early. But, you know, once you get over that T8 hump and you get into Profound, going from Profound to like SS20 is not that bad anymore. You just need to like spend a few days getting over that initial hump where everything feels like immensely expensive, you can't afford anything, and it just sucks. There's very few characters that don't have that hump, and those are characters that can be in like that S tier, and, you know, they're just gonna feel really good. But at least in my experience from playing Bing 2 and just playing any Spellburst character as opposed to Tangles, Spellburst just feels like really much weaker. I mean, Yuga 1 can kind of get around the issues of Spellburst because he has like the built-in automation. So the biggest harm for spell burst, which is buying the 10k FE burst activation, isn't there, or being forced into like a Salt River setup, which is just worse than Surging Inspiration. Which, you know, not being forced into that is really good for Yuga. But with that being said, Bing 2 would probably be fine going to next season if it wasn't for all the spell burst changes. They did add like a new Nether King's Boon, which gives you a burst activation automation, which is actually a buff for Solid River builds, but it doesn't actually affect Bing 2, because Bing 2 is like the only Spellburst character that's forced into Solid River. And just in my opinion, Solid River is just worse than Solid River is just worse than Surging Inspiration. With all that being said, I think you're going to get stuck on Bing 2 this season. I think last season he would have probably been up here all the way, but the nerfs really are going to hit him hard, unfortunately. Now, next up is going to be a character that's very close and dear to me. It's going to be Erika 2. Erika 2, you might be a bit confused about this character. You might be a bit confused by why she's a spellcaster, considering she starts with Thunderspike. And she's part of the Erika tree line, which, you know, every Erika character is a melee attacker. Erika 2's Euro trait is very interestingly set up. Oh shit, I didn't talk about... Okay, wait, sorry, before I talk about this, I need to mention Bing 2's Euro trait, because we didn't mention it. Bing 2's Euro trait is Spell Burst. He gains a lot of damage from Spell Bursts, and he sometimes like times 3 his Spell Burst count. And he shoots out like a ton of Spell Bursts, and all of his things just scale off of having Spell Burst. His whole gimmick is just Spell Burst. Spell Burst, Spell Burst, Spell Burst, but not just 2 Spell Bursts, having like 20 Spell Bursts. He wants to have as many Spell Bursts as possible. Okay, sorry about that. Going back to E2, E2's hero trait is essentially she's the lightning girl. If you ever think about like a lightning-based build, most likely, no matter what the build is, except for like a melee attack skill, because melee attackers are overtuned in this game, E2 is gonna be your girl for it. She's just gonna be the best hero to play it on. That's especially the case if it is like a lightning skill. The reason for that is all of your traits are spec'd into num scaling. Now, num is an element that you apply to enemies, similar to like frostbite or ignite or whatever, where it's just an element you apply to enemies that makes them take additional damage. It's basically the same thing as frostbite, but it has it does specify on num that it only affects lightning damage, lightning hit damage. So when you play a num build, when you play Erika 2, you're basically forced into doing a bunch of num scaling. Your entire hero trait is spec'd around num scaling, but she can actually reach very, very absurd multipliers. The problem that you're going to run into when you play Erika 2, though, is she has two taxes. She has 2 taxes she has to pay. The first tax you have to pay as an Erika 2 is the melee tax, in the sense of, to actually get to the part of the game where you can play spells and, you know, be a spellcaster and all that, you first have to go through progression all the way to Time Rock 7. You're playing Thunderspike, which is just a miserable experience. And once you do reach Time Rock 7, then you need to do this awkward swap that takes a lot of time and loses you a lot of damage to go into Chain Lightning. And early on, like, you don't really have any good ways to apply 10 num stacks on the enemies and keep full num uptime. So you don't even get the full, like, use of your hero trait. Your hero trait is just kind of, like, not doing its job until you get, like, a bit of gear on her. And then once you have the gear on her, you have to pay the second tax, which is Erika 2 just has to give up one of her main traits always for Thunderspike. Now, that's not really a big deal. That might sound awful. It's actually not a very big deal, considering the fact that pretty much a lot of heroes in this game have to pay the tax. Like, Sage has to pay that tax times 3. It's way worse on Sage even than it is on Erika 2, for example. But with all of that aside, late game Erika 2 is pretty much always going to be deck stacking. You don't really have an option with her. Like, any Erika 2 build in any season is just going to be the same thing, because it's kind of the only way really to scale her. There's no other options that are viable on her, unfortunately. And that's going to be deck stacking to scale lightning damage. And then pretty much everyone who plays her is just gonna go Searching Inspiration. I have done other builds in the past, like Armor Stacker and stuff like that. But realistically, your only option is just Searching Inspiration, deck stacking. And for defense, you can either go Verdant Steps, Magi, which is like the better option, or you can go Block Cap and Block Ratio and just be a block build. But with all that yapping out of the way, I actually think Erika 2 looks pretty good in the next season. I say this every season, and I feel wrong every season. Your early game's gonna suck. You're going to have a bad early game. Your day one is going to suck dick. You need to accept this. But there is a new item in this game that is literally a burst activation, which should be available early into the game, and it should be very cheap. And it hopefully is going to be very cheap. I expect it to be a lot cheaper than a burst activation, and it is significantly better than a burst activation. This is one of the biggest issues that Erika has to deal with, okay? And it's this. Banishment Spellburst. This is going to save Erika 2. I am so confident that you're going to be able to get this day one, and you're going to be able to get Searching Inspiration day one. And if you can get Searching Inspiration day one, this character fucking skyrockets in damage, and it feels 50 times better. I'm full coping. I'm putting her in decent progression curve. Instead of F tier. I believe in her. Oh, also, I forgot to mention the third tax you have to pay on Erika 2. She is the fastest character in the game. She has a lot of built-in movement speed in her kit. Because she's the fastest character in the game, she pays a movement tax, and that's the biggest reason why she sucks. She is a character you should just reroll into. Like, realistically, if you want to have the best experience, League Sword someone else, farm for 3 days, reroll into Erika 2, have a good time. But if you want to League Sword her, and you want to force it through, I fucking believe in her. I really do believe in her. She does not belong in this tier. She belongs here probably, but I fucking believe in her. I'm so confident that this Banishment Spellburst is gonna be the thing that makes her good. My entire chat's typing Gophium. Fuck. Oh, my entire chat's typing Gophium. Okay. Then next up we have Sage. We have Sage. Oh my god, I didn't record a Sage video. Listen, if you want to know how to play Sage, just watch my video. I'm gonna record a guide for her. I literally recorded a full guide on how to play Sage. I didn't look at any setups, because every setup's just gonna play Chromatic Shot, probably. Yeah. I think Sage is gonna struggle a decent amount in the early game. The problem that Sage has is she has no innate multipliers in her hero kit, so your only multiplier is Elixir effect and giving up your like skill slots for Elixir effect. So she's very like shoehorned into one type of build. But when your entire hero kit is around like putting in one build, and then in the early game you don't have a lot of elixirs to choose from. Like later on you have some really good special elixirs to choose from, but in the very start of the game, from like the elixir shop, the only thing you really have to give you damage is like Thirst Dew. So she's actually like really struggling in the early game because of that. But Thirst Dew is also really fucking broken early on. I think her early to mid game is gonna be a tiny bit tough. I think once you start getting the special dews and things, it's gonna start picking up a lot. And once you start putting like the build together and things, she's actually gonna be looking a lot stronger. And she has something that the other spellcasters don't really have. She kind of just has a lot of built-in defense. She's one of the tankiest characters in the game. And traditionally in the previous tier lists, you know, other characters who are tanky is going to be like... Wait, that's Thea. It's going to be like Rosa 1. She's a very tanky character. And... there was someone else, but I don't remember who. Now, from the previous tier list, you probably saw Rosa 1 as Giga Ultra Low tier. And Sage kind of has the same issue where it's like, you know, not the best, but unlike Rosa 1, her identity wasn't completely stripped away from her, and she still has things that are unique to her as a character. So with all that being said, I think she's gonna be strong. Maybe I'm coping, maybe I'm biased because I'm gonna play Sage. Maybe I'm biased. But I think she's gonna be a very strong option. I don't want to put her in overall best because I just don't think you're getting to like Profound Day 1 on her. I just don't think that's realistic. I think like Profound Day 1 is just out of reach on this character. I think Deep Space Day 3 is out of reach on her, or like Day 2 is out of reach of her. But I think like once you do get the two, like her shit together, she's gonna feel really good. She's gonna feel really nice. She's gonna be very speedy once you get like the Scorpion Distillate, and you're gonna have a good time on her. And dare I say it, I think her endgame might even be better than this season. I think she might be stronger in the endgame than she was this season. That might be cope. That probably is cope. But she looks really good in the endgame. Her problem is just the early game. It's in this sort of the game, you just don't have elixir effect. You don't have special dues. You don't have elixir progress. You're just mapping on a character that has no Euro trait, basically. Your only Euro trait is that you have strong and power skill, and that's it. In the early game, you have strong and power skill, and you have like a strong due, one due, because there's no second due to choose from. If she had a second due to choose from, like maybe the play on her is just fucking go True Flame Fire Convert from the get-go, because then you have two dues. You have an Affliction due and you have the Thirst due. Maybe that's the option. I didn't actually think about that before, but I might have to math that out, because that might actually be the way you play her. But with all of that being said, I still think she's gonna be a pretty good option. And she has very good Jago physics. Then, last up, we have an honorable mention. We have an honorable mention of Carino 2. I'm just gonna put him in reroll into a tier, but I think you can just league sort this. I mentioned this in the previous tier list. Carino 2 Icebound Beam is very overtuned. It gets to 15 trillion on no gear. It's just disgusting. And I would be remiss to not, like, add it. Or at least give it an honorable mention. It's one of those cheese bolts. Carino 2 always has, like, cheese bolts that he's good at. And this is one he's good at this season. Also, Xeno 2 is fucking Giga Ultra S tier. No, that's not actually true. Xeno 2's scaling seems pretty in line with, like, other spellcasters. Like, if you crunch the numbers on her, if you, like, do the calculator on her, she seems pretty just standard and in line with other spellcasters. She's nothing special or extraordinary, but she's not bad. I was talking to some friends about it, and the sentiment was the nerfs to her felt a bit overdone. Because, like, she's not bad, but, like, you know, when you have a new character, you kind of expect the new character to be, like, Omega Ultra S tier, right? For them to be the absolute best, for them to be like Sage or Rosa 2 or Iris 2, you know? This character was fucking unkillable. Like, literally 1 HP could tank SS21. This character has been the best in the game since her release. This character had 1 season of glory. This character was fucking, like, the most OP thing ever when she released. You know, that's kind of the expectation in this game. There's very few characters that don't really follow that. Funny enough, Xeno 1 was one of the characters that didn't really follow that. And I do kind of think that Xeno 2 is following the same trend, where I think, in terms of a character and archetype, she definitely deserves S tier. However, I think she's going to be so expensive that she generally just loses a ranking on the tier list because of her price. She's just going to be such an absurdly expensive character to play that I would literally just take her down 1 rank because of that. But the reason I'm not going to do that is for one thing specific. Even though her early game and mid game her early game doesn't seem that insane, her late game scaling with Spellburst seems extremely powerful. She seems like a character. A friend of mine was talking about it. I don't know if he wants me to leak this, but I'm sorry, I'm just gonna mention it. I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck. Like, only losers care about shit like that. You know, something you can do on her is, like, play Surging Inspiration. Her biggest issue as a hero is, you know, you have a 2-second, like, charge rate on your Spellburst, and you're shooting out, like, torrents, or, like, your terrors are, like, shooting out stuff, like, every 0.3 seconds or 0.2 seconds. How do you generate enough Spellburst that every single torrent is buffed by like 500% from your burst stacks? Easy. Just use Surging Inspiration. Surging Inspiration gives you a fuck ton of Spellburst charges, and now every single time your charge goes just a torrent, it's buffed by 500% additional, and all of a sudden this character goes from like being okay, omega obscenely broken. You know? The numbers on it looked absolutely insane. So I do think she's gonna be worse than both Gemma 2 and Thea 1 in the early game. But I think like her late game potential is really, really good. Which is gonna like firmly put her in the S tier for me. This is obviously hit based. I'm not entirely sure about her dot scaling, but I'll ask some people about it and figure that out before I make the video. But as far as I've been aware, the general sentiment was that her dot will seem pretty good as well. Terra dots seem like a absolute go-to. It feels like every dot build in this game got nerfed, so Terra dots can be the best. Okay. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely, lovely video. And I'll see you all again next time. Thank you so much for... please leave a like, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Bye, YouTube! Bye, YouTube! Bye, YouTube!